to take a look at stories making the headlines in Nigerian newspapers. I have with me in the studio Dr. Dan Ekere, a lecturer from the University of Lagos, and in-house analyst Obani Akinwale. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for coming on TVC
Good
Breakfast.
morning. Good morning, viewers.
All right, let's head straight to the papers now, and I begin with the blueprint. 2020 Armed Forces Emblem launch. Buhari orders security chiefs to settle victims' entitlements. To the front page of the Daily Trust, Buhari cancels Esther Code as ministry's budget 2.4 billion naira for foreign trips, restricts over travels to 8 in a year. Daily Times now, Senate flays Buhari over refusal to sign audit commission bill, says president's action encouraging corruption, vows to strengthen increased funding for Office of Auditor General. To the front page of News Direct, Nigeria needs prayers to overcome challenges, Senate President. And to the front page of the Vanguard now, federal government cuts travels, Esther codes for ministers, other officials. MDAs to submit, get approval for travel plans. Directive to ensure efficiency, curb leakages in government resources. Size of delegation now limited, more officials to travel economy. And finally, on the front page of the Daily Sun, Buhari moves to cut cost of governance, slashes Esther codes, size of delegation for ministers, directs MDAs to submit travel costs. Gentlemen, this is the story we'll be looking at because the government has been talking about cutting cost of governance, and the president has made a move now. When you look at the front page of most of the newspapers this morning, the Daily Sun, the Vanguard, and another paper here had that story this morning, talking about the president trying to cut costs by reducing the number of travels for ministers and their Esther codes. They have to submit approvals before they are able to travel. And he says here that this directive is to ensure efficiency, curb leakages in government resources. I'll start with you, Ni.
A very good job for Mr. President for once again trying to grab the headlines of the newspaper. I will be impressed if the presidency can let us know how many days we have the presidential aircraft parked in London when President Buhari was sick. It will be very interesting if the presidency can furnish us with how much we are spending on financing Mr. Maman Daura and his family. It will be interesting if we are cutting costs on how much we are spending on cutleries, food in the villa. So on and so forth. So when we are just coming up and saying ministers should travel 2, travel 3, travel what have you, what is the
traveling economy now? What's
the definition of economy?
Well,
so when you have a minister that has, for the first way I think we should have cut our cost is to reduce the number of ministries, the MDAs. There is an Orosanye report that says we have duplication in how things are being done. You have Ministry of Special Intervention, you have Ministry of Humanitarian and Social This, and yet the presidency is still coming up. Now you have created about 46 ministries. We are going to have PAs, SAs, and what have you. Every ministry is going to create some agencies and departments under them, and yet you are coming and giving us this facade as a headliner. For me, this is not cost saving at all. If it is cost saving, the presidency is aware that the crop of about 469 parliamentarians we have there are planning to buy a set of new jeeps. There is no way of, we are spending 150 billion of 469,000, yet the total budget for the policing, for their salary, is not what we are using. So this is just, like I said, they've done a good job for having the headliner for today says they are cutting costs. But for me, it is not cutting costs, it's just spending money on PR.
But then the attempt has to be made. We have to start from somewhere, don't we?
Yeah, certainly we have to start from somewhere, but start from somewhere reasonable. You know,
this is not reasonable enough.
I don't think this is the major issue when it comes to
cutting costs of government.
Yes, because the law provides for at least every state producing a minister.
Absolutely.
And we have 36. But today we have 40-something, ministers. So what for if truly you want to cut costs? Why increase the number of ministries? Why not just make them 36? And perhaps maybe you add a budget to it to make 37. That should have been the maximum. Then have you told us the maximum number of SAs, SSAs, and the rest that each of these ministers will have, and the rest of it? What about the various, agencies and the rest of them? So you've not really addressed the
and
issue.
some of these agencies are said to be redundant. Do you
really need most of them? At the time you do proper auditing, at least what has been done by the Oversight Committee, the report was clear enough as to what Nigeria should actually have. Now, it doesn't mean you must swallow everything about that report, hook, line, and sinker, but yeah. you can look at it carefully and see, the ones that you feel could actually affect or bring about this idea of cost cutting in governance. That will help. As we speak, like you rightly mentioned, they are talking about buying SUVs, and we buy this all the time. So what happens? Is it that after buying them, as you leave, you go with them? Or are they the National Assembly vehicles or personal vehicles? Because I expect banks operate almost the same kind of operations we are talking about. They have pool cars. If you are going for an operation, what stops them from using pool cars? Must it be SUVs? What kind of cars were some of them driving before they became what they are? Were they not moving? So if the idea of movement is from one point to the other, must it be through SUVs? And I noticed that there are other clients where they even use buses. If it's all about comfort, there are buses that provide that comfort. Essentially, it is not one person who will be going for oversight. So why not go in such a manner? But look at the cost of moving those cars. You have about 5-10 people in a committee. Each of them is going with an SUV. Now, you have all manner of escorts attached to them. And we're talking about policing the country, and we have inadequate,
security.
So, for me, I think, like rightly mentioned, this is more like a show, just trying to tell the world that, yeah, we are doing this. I doubt if it was actually a properly thought out idea that we want to cut costs. Because if that was the idea, I want to believe that they would have sat on this, look at all the variables. Look at all the areas that actually bring about this issue of, high cost in governance, so that you address them squarely. It shouldn't just be about, are you saying that it's only ministers who actually spend,
this money?
Yes. So look at it holistically. Let Nigerians be sure that, yes, this is where we are going, and the president is actually going in that direction.
But the issue,
by virtue of, the policies
just
you
go
come
ahead
out with.
with what you want to say.
What I want to say is, I'm not sure whether you watch whenever a president is traveling abroad. What you find out is that you have crop of governors and ministers who line up when the president is entering the Air Force. Now, when the president is coming back to Nigeria, you discover that the same set of people will be the one to form the personnel welcoming the president. Now, in other climes, I'm not aware when the former Prime Minister of Britain was in Nigeria, you have every county mayor, mayor of London, mayor of Leicester, waiting for him to come in. Even in the Asia, you find out that they are the big business boys follow their president to come to country to sign deals. But in our own case, the president has not come to tell us that I can bet with you that the next is going to have somebody from the north, southwest, south-south, southeast, north central, and all these governors will go with their personal aides.
Absolutely.
So when you are now saying you are asking ministers to cut the number of trips, the same president will take these ministers on trip. The same president will compel the vice president to go with this guy to go and sign deals. So this is just, like I said, he's just trying to buy the headlines. Absolutely, we are not cutting any cost. Because what we have done so far is that you have presidential initiative of North.
The question has always been the political will to really cut costs.
There is no will, either political or financial or anything, there is no will. That's the sad truth. But what we're just trying to do is just to ensure that before the end of the tenure, we grab the headline at least once in a week. And that's what they're trying to do for the president.
Normal headline, attitude.
All right. Take a look at stories making the headlines in Nigerian newspapers. I have with me in the studio Dr. Dan Ekere, a lecturer at the University of Lagos, and in-house analyst, Bani Akinwale. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning.
Thank you.
All right, let's look at newspapers this morning. It says here, in the blueprint, 2020 Armed Forces emblem launch, Buhari orders security up chiefs to settle victims' entitlements. That's in the blueprint. The Daily Times is saying here, Buhari cancels Esther Code as ministry's budget 2.4 billion naira for foreign trips, restricts travels to 8 in a year. The Daily Times is saying, Senate flares Buhari over refusal to sign audit commission bill, says president's actions encouraging corruption. vows to strengthen increased funding for Office of Auditor General. The news director is saying Nigeria needs prayers to overcome challenges, says Senate President. And the Vanguard is saying federal government cuts travels, ESTA codes, others for ministers, other officials. And the writer says MDA to get approval for travel plans, directive to ensure efficiency, curb leakages in government resources, size of delegations now limited, more officials to travel economy. The Daily Sun is saying Buhari moves to cut cost of governance, slashes ESTA codes, size of delegation for ministers, direct MDAs to submit travel costs. So we will stay with the news direct. It says here, Nigeria needs prayers to overcome challenges. That's according to the Senate President. Have we resorted to prayers now?
Let me say that it is nice coming from the head of our...
The hallowed chambers.
This is Chamber Hallow, the head of the Legislative Arm of Government. You recall vividly that a couple of months back, the Chief of Army Staff said the same thing, that the Boko Haram war needs spiritual intervention. It is very, very obvious that if it will permit me to say that, just like what we have in the days of President Goodluck Jonathan, that we say we have clueless leaders. What we have at the end of affair, they are clueless leaders. I'm not sure whether you saw in the paper, is the Italian Parliament that decided to close down to reduce the number of legislators to save X amount of money. And if you look at the HDI or the index of living in Italy as compared to Nigeria, or per capita income of Italian as compared to Nigeria, is not to write home about. And yet, we're not thinking of, our problem is not prayer. Our number one problem is our untruthful leaders, and they don't require prayer. Sincerely, sometimes you look at Jerry Rawlings' treatment in Ghana, and sometimes you wish that you have leaders that can come out boldly and say things that are supposed to be said. What I would have expected from our parliamentarians who asked the gavel to rule on bills is to say, as a Senate President, I decided that we should not have more than 36 senators and no more other National Assembly. Because ask yourself, you have 3 senators per state. Some states have 24 House of Rep members. They will still have 33 House of Assembly members. They will still have so number of councillors, so number of chairmen. And somebody is coming in the morning and telling us that our problem is prayer. Our problem is not prayer. And again, it's only this climb. You remember in Africa, it covered that the number of churches and mosques is more in Africa, especially side of the world. You cannot expect a Briton to be praying that God provide light. So certain things are common sense that you don't need to pray about. You are the head of this legislative. You saw the excesses in the system. Why can't you just swivel your gavel and say, first of all, you are cutting all these unnecessary allowances. You are proposing a situation whereby we stop this bicameral system of Parliament. You are proposing a situation whereby all our ministers, they are not full-time ministers. They have their private jobs.
Wait, Dr. Dan, is that feasible?
It is feasible, except that we have people who are greedy, who will not want to go that way because that is their means of livelihood. You know, we have politicians.
Career politicians.
Yeah, we have politicians day and night. That's all they do. They don't have any other thing. So the moment you go into the idea of trying to reduce the number of legislators, in terms of senators and members of House of Rep, and even ministries and the rest of them, so many of them will be jobless. You know, yet today a lot of them are very rich. But the truth is that the moment you pull them out of that place, they will look like fishes that are out of water because they don't have any other thing to do. They think that this money should keep coming just like that. However, on the issue of prayers, I do not think that Nigeria, particularly the quarters it's coming from, is something that should be taken serious. Though Nigerians pray a lot. As a matter of fact, we are good in prayer. Yeah, perhaps.
We are very religious.
Yeah, but if that becomes the real option, if the Senate President is serious about it, then what I expected was that he should actually relinquish that office, give it to the likes of, Pastor Adeboye and the rest of it to lead. Because those are men who have what it takes to pray and pray things to happen. So leave the scene. Let the prayer warriors take over so that we know that you mean business. Or is it just a political statement? You see, the truth is that, are they saying they really don't know what is happening? I don't think that's correct. But I want to believe that somebody is feeding fat from all this crisis, or some persons. Because each time you budget billions and billions and billions for security, where does this money actually go into? Is it buying arms? Is it feeding the soldiers? What exactly is it? Now, for how long are we going to be fighting, people that we don't see, we don't know? And these things happen through sources, because you cannot tell me Boko Haram does not operate, does operate without funds. Are you telling me you don't know the source of funding? Are you telling me you don't know how they feed themselves and the rest of it? You've not been able to address any of these challenges. Now kidnapping is everywhere.
It's now a business.
So we don't even know if it's an extension of Boko Haram.
Right,
and yet nobody will give us a clue. We are telling us to pray.
All right, let's go to the home state of the Senate President himself. Do you require prayer to fix road in those states? Do you require money to ensure that people are not radicalized to become terrorists? Do you require prayer for all that? If you recall recently, the Owasunoye ICPC said they were able to recover about 200 unawarded contracts. Do you need prayer to do that? So the question is not about... see, one thing I've noticed about our head of system in Nigeria is that they just like to grab the headlines. And I was watching a clip of what happened to the Prime Minister of Britain yesterday, when one British was accosting him, until we get to that point whereby we stopped them by the road and said, account for where we employ you.
At what point are we going to get to that point? Because it seems that
they only
see them during the elections.
You were getting there. You recall that the governor of one of the states was stoned during the campaign. You recall that
was during campaign, but after campaign,
even a former governor gave you the solution. That the solution is that you have not been stoning these people who steal your money, and that is why they continue to steal. All right, so I expected that crowd should have started by stoning him. Because certainly he has stolen. You cannot tell me, because you should look at the track record of so many of these people. What job or business have you done that brought you to this level of wealth?
Yeah.
And the way we operate this, our so-called corruption fight is that, oh, you who is alleged to come and prove. What other proof do you need? Tell me how you made the money. That is that's the easiest way to make this. You are the one who has the wealth.
But
how did you come about the wealth?
If we are to have a situation where we have part-time legislation in this country, the process and the kind of system we run in this country might not allow it.
It will allow it. It's simple. How many days do they sit in a year?
It will.
So the question now is this: place them on allowances. See, while we're in school, we have the parliament and you pay per seat. And even in developed worlds, what you find out is that they pay per seat. So what you need to do is simple. You want to be the rep of your area, fantastic. Give them level 14 salary. You will see that nobody will be interested. Oh, but the moment you are allocating millions, billions, SUVs, PAs, and when they are leaving, you give them apple quarters, newspaper, wardrobe, traveling, coffee, and what have you, people will continue to go there. And the most gloomy industry in Nigeria, you know it, just become a councillor.
All right.
and again, even the allowances they assign to their drivers and this and that, they even still pocket it. These drivers don't even get it. The gardeners don't get it. And so many of them. So look, it's a very it's as thriving as kidnapping.
All right, let's head straight to the papers now, and I begin with the blueprint. 2020 Armed Forces Emblem launch. Buhari orders security chiefs to settle victims' entitlements. And we'll move to the front page of the Daily Trust. Buhari cancels Esther Code as minister's budget 2.4 billion naira for foreign trips, restricts travels to 8 in a year. On the front page of the Daily Times, Senate flays Buhari over refusal to sign audit commission bill, says president's action encouraging corruption, vows to strengthen increased funding for Office of Auditor General. We'll be looking at that story shortly. To the front page of the News Direct, Nigeria needs prayers to overcome challenges, Senate President. On the front page of the Vanguard now, federal government cuts travels, Esther codes for ministers, other officials. MDAs to submit get approval for travel plans. Directive to ensure efficiency, curb leakages in government resources. Size of delegations now limited, more officials to travel economy. And finally, on the front page of the Daily Sun, Buhari moves to cut costs of governance, slashes Esther codes, size of delegation for ministers, direct MDAs to submit travel costs. All right, we head back to the front page of the Daily Times now, where the Senate has reacted to the president's refusal to sign audit commission bill. This is coming on the heels that the president says this government says is fighting corruption, and yet has refused to sign this audit commission that is supposed to strengthen the office of the Auditor General. I wonder what you make of this, Mr.
Yeah. Until we stop having theater of laughter, or what they call crack your rib, and we have a proper parliamentarians, I think we are going to be getting this. You recall vividly that our Senate is fond of crying wolf most times, and most of the time the executive have taken their time to tutor them on some of discrepancies in some of the policies, formulation, the bills and vis-a-vis. I think what we need to do now to stop wastage, if there is total sincerity from the Senate, is to find a way of implementing Orosanye reports to the fullest. I think the only way the Senate can ensure that the Office of Auditor General is strengthened is to stop allocating constituency projects to parliamentarians. I think the only way the parliamentarians will ensure that there is prudence in the system is to ensure that SUVs or what have you, or buses are attached to senatorial districts and not to individuals. I think the only way they can strengthen the Office of Auditor General is to ensure that if you and I as Nigerians are going to look for where to stay, how to move, they should also from their own salary, which should also be at the way they are paying every civil servant, should pay for their accommodations. Now, asking the presidency to sign a bill that I'm more than confident that by the time the executive sit down and point out those loopholes, because some of the things we find out in some of the things that was, we give it to the 8th Senate, they pass a lot of bills, but some of the bills are conflicting. And when we're saying there are duplications and what have you, yeah, Office of the General should be empowered. What is the role of ICPC in corruption fighting? What is the role of EFCC in corruption fighting? What is the role of CCB in corruption fighting? Are these agencies up to their responsibilities? If the auditor discovers that somebody has stolen, by virtue of the law, it will be referred to either ICPC or CCB. So, whatever, how much you strengthen the Office of the General to say that I have noticed some financial infraction from this side, how are we going to implement it? Not only that, do we have the capacity from our Nigerian police to investigate these financial infractions? Don't forget again, recently we signed the NFIU Act. And again, it's again a way of fighting corruption. So what you find out is that we have too many
duplicity
everywhere in our system. So if the Senate is sincere, the first thing is to go, like I said earlier, is to go the way of Italy, cut down the number of parliamentarians, go to a single, stop this bicameral system. 2, place themselves on level 14 or level 16 salary as directors, make it a part-time job, then ensure that every other regulatory agency that have duplicacy role, EFCC, NFIU, sometimes you even find NIA doing what NFIU is doing. So you find out sometimes it's a police CID is doing the same job. So until we strengthen all these agencies, asking for a bill to be passed seems irrelevant. We have the laws in this country, but are we implementing those laws to the letter?
Irrelevant, Dr. Kere.
Well, you can look at it from different angles, but I am thinking that all agencies should be well funded. So if it's about funding, I don't think that demands a bill for funding to be adequate. But again, what is the job of the Auditor General? Is it this bill that is going to spell out the duties, the responsibilities of the Auditor General? Are we saying that we have the Office of the Auditor General that does not know what it's there for? What has it been doing? Is it that this bill is going to enhance the performance of the office?
Or the capacity?
Or the capacity. Is it, because if it's all about funding, then you don't even need a bill to provide adequate funding. And I do believe, like we're made to understand, I'm not sure there's any particular segment that is adequately funded. We'll see the education, health, and the rest of it. So now, at least over time, Senate has been using their own position to actually attract funds to some of these agencies. So that could be done. But then, on the issue of the Office of the Auditor General, even when you fund it adequately, are you saying that that office is immune to corruption on its own? Because if the idea is about fighting corruption... But funding
is necessary to also fight corruption.
No, it is. That's what I'm saying. So now, there must be ways of, checking and balancing all the...
Absolutely, that's important.
Even the Office of the Auditor General is not immune to corruption. So they could as well connive. All right? So, and we do know that EFCC has been fighting or is meant to fight, corruption-related issues. So if there are such challenges with that office, you don't need a bill to go there. I'm not sure there is any bill talking about, corruption in ministries and all the rest before the FCC is attacking people or in politics and all of that. Now, corruption is corruption as it is already
The bill
noted.
is to empower.
What I'm saying is that power is already there. The power is there. That's the truth.
But it has to be backed by law.
Which law?
The law
It's
is practically all those bodies are
What's
established
law?
by law. All right, so put those laws to practice, enforce them. You don't need any other special law before you audit what needed to be audited. The Auditor General's office should do his due diligence. Audit offices that needed to be audited. You don't need any special bill to do that. However, if there is a bill coming, I don't know the content of the bill that will enhance it, yes, that could be done. But that's not the reason why, the fight against corruption is weakened. Clearly, the fight against corruption is not strategic enough.
Absolutely.
Yes, it's not strategic enough because it's like it was meant to just look at, politicians. Corruption is not all about politicians. Corruption is part of human nature, perhaps. Yes, it is. So look at it holistically.
And not just
you
an office.
You need to equally address it scientifically. It's not enough to begin to look at
to
some
limit it to an office.
At all.
So what I want us to look at is that if you look at Senate democracies, you have what they call classical laws. And what it means is that the laws is not based on time. Now, what you find out our parliamentarians are doing now is that the moment they said a module of Gary should go for 50 naira, you see our parliamentarians starting passing the bill and said, now we are not looking at the basis, that what are the indices that will provide this problem. So when you come with this bill, you discover that every Nigerian Constitution as amended in 1999, Electoral Act as amended in 2003. You see Administration of Criminal Justice as amended 2000. So you find out that some of our laws are not classical. So what they should pertain themselves, consider themselves with is how do we make classical law so that it's not based on the current situation, you just make a law, and at the end of the day, the law will just happen in 2-3 years, and what you see again is amendment and bills. They go around, they go to foreign lands and they say how democracy is being practiced.
And in any case, the office of the Auditor General should not rely on this as a basis for failure. They should do their due diligence.
All right, gentlemen. Dr. Danny Curry, thank you for coming. Abani Akinwale, thank you for coming.
It's always a pleasure. Thanks.
You're watching TVC Breakfast, and we're streaming live on YouTube. You can connect with us on Twitter using the hashtag TVC Breakfast. Still to come on the show.